So, I wanted to take a crack at predicting this next year's Oscars Best Picture lineup because last year I came surprisingly close. I'm talking 7 out of 10. And ironically, the ones I got wrong I was kind of the most confident about. The Color Purple ended up being nothing, Saltburn was a different kind of movie than I thought it was, and Dune 2 got delayed, which I feel like shouldn't count. Oh, and if you're wondering why I hadn't ranked the Best Picture nominees last year, it's because we're doing things slow fidelity once again. I feel like it worked last time. And once again, I'm clutching on my 5 little Oscars voting demographics theory, which I will explain again here. Retirees, formerly known as olds, but I feel like retiree paints a more accurate picture of the vibe here, like the kind of movies your parents like. Simple, 3-act structure films that make you feel good at the end and don't rock the boat too much. They continue to be the biggest voting group in the Academy. Cheerleaders are perhaps the stereotypical Oscars voter who tends to like movies about movies, and tend to vote for their friends or otherwise what makes themselves feel good about their profession and life choices. They're not as prominent as they once were, but still worth keeping in mind. Popcorn munchers are more or less casual moviegoers, more in line with what your friend who has a life likes to watch. They like movies that are entertaining, but also tend to go for hot items that are frequently talked about. Messagers tend to vote for movies for their message or political significance. It's one thing if the movie is good, but what does the movie say about the world as a whole and stuff like that. I notice messagers tend to particularly like social satire films because one, without fail, has always gotten into the Best Picture lineup since at least 2019 with Parasite. Art house snobs are the maybe pretentious sort who really dig into the craft of the movie. They tend to prop up smaller movies or auteur movies with a strong artistic vision. They have grown in prominence in recent years due to the recent expansion in the Academy, which brought in a lot of international voters, and they definitely like their art house stuff. If this movie has made it in the critics' top 10 list, this will probably appeal to the art house snobs. To win Best Picture, you need to please most, if not all of these demographics to some extent. Although to be nominated, it is enough to be favored by at least one of these demographics, so we gotta make sure all 5 of them have something to sink their teeth into throughout our 10. We can't just go all in on the retirees, for instance. Number 1, Sing Sing. Sing Sing is the movie I am probably most confident about. Being about incarcerated men finding purpose by acting in a theater group, Sing Sing has already released in some film festivals and it got rave reviews. It is probably the film most commonly predicted to be a big player in the Oscars this year. A24 is backing this one up, so it's gonna have a reliable promotion, and as you can tell by my handy little chart, I don't think any one of my 5 demographics will have any problem with this movie. Art house snobs have already shown that they admire this movie and it seems to be a critic's favorite. Messengers are going to find the fact that it is about incarcerated men and exploring the prison system to some extent relevant, and Sing Sing appears to be the sort of feel-good movie that retirees have loved in the past. I'm getting strong coda, or as sacrilegious it might be to say, even Green Book vibes, in that it is a feel-good and cozy approach to a political issue, and it depicts a group of people we often do not see on the screen. The fact that Sing Sing has been said to make up its cast largely of former incarcerated people should also give it a massive narrative and SAG push. Number 2, Dune Part 2. I'm predicting this movie again because, of course I am. We've all seen it, I've seen it. Dune Part 2 is not only the big popcorn muncher blockbuster movie that tends to reliably get into Best Picture, but it is perhaps one of the most highly acclaimed fantasy films ever made, surpassing even the original. Maybe this is recency bias on my part, but I might consider it along the same likes of a Star Wars Empire Strikes Back, or Lord of the Rings Return of the King. Even if the hype dies down, we know Dune Part 2 is going to win the most amount of Oscars this year, of course, ramping up the below-the-line text like visual effects, cinematography, score, film editing, production design, just to name a few, and I think that by itself gets this movie easily into Best Picture. Okay, number 3, Blitz. Following a cast of British citizens during the London bombings in World War II, Blitz appears to be a war drama and a period piece at the same time. It feels like capital O Oscar bait. The fact that Apple TV is pushing this movie, a massive and successful distributor, and its director, Steve McQueen, is a huge name, having directed Best Picture winner 12 Years a Slave, absolutely gets this movie into conversation. The only reason I don't have it on number 2 is that we just don't know very much about the movie itself. There's no trailer, and unlike Sing Sing or Dune 2, nobody has seen Blitz yet, but I am hyper confident in this movie getting in. Number 4, Conclave, and now we are finally done with the movies I feel absolutely confident about. Yup, that didn't last long. However, I do buy the potential of Conclave, apparently following a fictionalized succession contest to be the next pope. The book is highly acclaimed. Edward Berger, though not a guaranteed Oscars player yet, is fresh off the presses of All Quiet on the Western Front and has proven himself a technically proficient director, and unlike Western Front, Conclave has a notable cast starring Ralph Fiennes. Mostly importantly, we need to look at the major distributors, and out of their entire lineup, I feel like Conclave is the only real contender Focus Features has been confirmed to currently wield. Number 5, The Nickel Boys. Although I'm not as confident in this movie as Conclave, I would probably get some money on them getting in. I can't say the same about The Nickel Boys, which, although political, is more hardcore and serious, giving me something closer to Women Talking or She Said vibes, movies that don't do too well. The Nickel Boys is based largely off of a real-life tragic story about a reform school that was notorious for abusing and even killing its largely African-American students. It's going to be a tough film to swallow for many people, especially the popcorn munchers who are probably not down for this kind of movie on a Friday night. The Nickel Boys, however, does focus on the friendship amongst some of the boys within a fictionalized version of the school, and that does give me further confidence that the movie won't be quite that alienating. Number 6, The Piano Lesson. So Netflix occasionally puts out movies that are based off of plays written by famous playwright August Wilson, so we actually have a decent idea on what to expect out of The Piano Lesson. Fences was a Best Picture nominee and it won Supporting Actress, in addition to being nominated for Actor in Adapted Screenplay. Ma Rainey's Black Bottom was less successful, sure. Not getting into Best Picture even during the pandemic year, not the best look. With that said, it was considered a frontrunner for several acting categories in both costume and makeup. I think it's also pretty commonly agreed that Ma Rainey's would have gotten in if 2020 allowed 10 nominees instead of just 8 that year. Both films have been criticized for being too faithful with their adaptations, to the point where they really felt like just plays being recorded rather than the film offering a new take on these works. But nonetheless, the strength of the original plays reliably garner a big audience, and I think The Piano Lesson will have a similar impact. It will get acting noms, maybe even an acting win. It will get a screenplay nod. Costumes and makeup is very likely too. It's also Netflix. If they want one of their movies nominated for Best Picture, they are going to get it. They are the most powerful distributor out there. Number 7, A Real Pain. Maybe this is my most controversial pick. A Real Pain is a comedy drama about two cousins who travel around Poland, and I think they encounter some Holocaust stuff on the way, but don't quote me on that. I don't know too much about A Real Pain other than the fact that it has premiered at Sundance to decently good reviews, and it stars Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin, who is obviously hot stuff right now. I've been on the lookout for the kind of films like American Fiction, the seemingly invisible and quiet comedy drama that sneaks up later on in award season, and I think A Real Pain fits in that bill to a T. We need more comedies on this lineup. So far it's kind of an intense selection, and A Real Pain looks like it will give each of my 5 voters something to like. I'm willing to bet this is going to be Searchlight's biggest priority as well, and Searchlight's is another one of those big distributors. Number 8, Joker 2. I wasn't originally going to predict Joker 2. It's not only because I'm not a fan of the first, I ranked it bottom when I ranked all of the Best Picture nominees of 2019, but we also have to remember the Oscars tend to be wary about superhero movies, sequels, and I would argue they don't like musicals as much as people think they do, and Joker 2 is all 3. Then I saw the trailer, and I gotta be honest, I'm right there with everybody. This project looks so interesting. I'm there opening day. The craftsmanship has absolutely improved since the first, and I think Joker 2, being a jukebox musical, takes such a bizarre and drastic shift from the first that I think it's going to be the most talked about movie of the year, just like the original Joker arguably was, just for completely different reasons. Number 9, The Apprentice. I was originally and stubbornly holding off against predicting The Apprentice, because as much as it might scratch that social satire itch, a movie being directly about Donald Trump,
they're noisy, they kill the birds, You want to see a bird graveyard? You just go. Take a look. A bird graveyard?
In our crazy year of 2024 feels like a little much. Especially since it looks like this movie will be more serious than the likes of an Adam McKay film. And yes, if this movie was made by Adam McKay, it would be in the top 5, sad as I am to say it. But this movie has certified high-tier talent behind it, and though I see so many possibilities where the Apprentice film is either cringe or becomes cringe based off of the way people talk about it, I think The Apprentice, more than any other movie I've heard of yet, scratches that messenger and popcorn muncher itch that has really hit home lately. Juror No. 2 is my 10th pick. I don't know. I feel like the only demographic I hadn't really made all that happy yet is a cheerleader, and unfortunately Tarantino's not releasing his final film after all, so I don't see a lot of movies about movies or actors or anything like that. No, I don't think the actor's gonna be that kind of movie. It stars an amnesic actor, and the director also worked on Moral Oral, so it's gonna be too weird. On the other hand, Juror No. 2 might be Clint Eastwood's last film, and it has an interesting enough premise, following a juror for a murder trial who finds out he is actually far more connected to the crime than he originally thought. To an extent, I'm treating Juror No. 2 as a placeholder, but Clint Eastwood films have been popular in Oscars past, so I don't think this one is so impossible. They might want to give him a career dub. Haha, I don't feel really confident with this 10. It seems really retiree-centric and a little bit serious. Compare this with the 10 that got nominated this year. We got Barbie and Poor Things. Films got goofy. But still, this is my play, and if I'm even 6 out of 10 right, I'll count it as a big win. Here are my honorable mentions. Gladiator 2. I would be predicting this movie if we weren't already filled to the brim with not only popcorn muncher movies like Dune 2 and Joker 2, but sequels like Dune 2 and Joker 2. I also don't have a lot of faith in Ridley Scott movies lately, but reception has been positive on Gladiator 2 so far, and the original did win Best Picture, so this is the movie I feel most uncertain about leaving out currently. Maria. Maria stars Angelina Jolie as opera singer Malia Callas, and is the third in the unofficial Sad Woman trilogy of films directed by Pablo Larraín. The other 2 movies were always on the outside looking in on the Best Picture conversation, despite being highly critically praised, so I'm treating Maria the same way. However, Angelina Jolie is a Best Actress frontrunner, so that definitely gives Maria more than most. The Room Next Door. Pedro Almodovar feels like, to me, one of those outside-looking-in kind of film directors, at least when it comes to the Oscars, but maybe it's his time. The film stars Tilda Swinton, who seems to be having a big year and looks like Sony will be distributing this movie, which I think gives this one a significant leg up. I know Parallel Mothers had Netflix, but Netflix is occupied with a bunch of other movies, so this could be Sony's big thing. Mother Mary. David Lowery, the guy who did The Green Knight, is directing what appears to be a normal film about a musician and a fashion designer starring Michaela Cole and Anne Hathaway. I think we'll see what kind of film this is. I can see it catching on, but I also see it being a little too indie film festivals for the Oscars. Megalopolis is one of the most interesting films of the year, a self-funded and independent passion project by legendary director Francis Ford Coppola of Godfather and Apocalypse Now fame, making an epic about an architect played by Adam Driver who wants to turn a decimated New York City into a utopia. Super interesting narrative right there. A bootstrap cinematic achievement. If only it was good. Queer, starring Daniel Craig, and by the same director of Best Picture nominated Call Me By Your Name, but also of Bones and All and Challengers. I think this movie has a chance, but Lucasfilms tend to be a little too YA vibes for the Oscars. The Fire Inside is a sports drama about you get the picture. Horizon Part 1. I don't think we, or the Oscars, have entirely gotten over Westerns. It will appeal to the older audience especially, but probably the same ones who would be occupied with Dune or Joker. Horizon probably won't attract a younger or snobbier audience, and it is a Part 1. Also, it's coming out in summer. No, I should have put this below Furiosa. Furiosa! I think we have our hands full with blockbuster films, especially with Dune 2, but considering how huge Mad Max Fury Road was in the Oscars and pop culture conversation, we absolutely cannot rule out its prequel, which is apparently amazing. Kinds of kindness. I know the Academy is loving Yorgos Lanthimos right now, but they still hate anthology films. The End is the latest apparent masterwork of the director behind The Act of Killing, one of the most heart-wrenching, sobering, and famous documentaries of all time. It is also quite possibly my review buddy Natisha's favorite film. Joshua Oppenheimer is making his first bold leap into fictional narrative films in order to create a Golden Age musical starring Tilda Swinton. What? The Supremes at Earl's all you can eat. I was treating this movie very seriously. It was my original 5th pick until I found out it is a Hulu original. Still not impossible, of course, but